Okay, we are live. All yours, John.
Oh boy, I don't have the script to read here. Mitch, you want to read it? Do you remember it?
I can have it up in a few seconds. Here we go.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's see. This meeting of the Northborough Fire Station Building Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with the July 16th, 2022 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Fire Station Building Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Northborough Fire Station Building Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. This meeting does not feature public comment.
All right. Thank you for that, Mitch. It seems like you might have done that once or twice before.
I almost have it memorized.
It's funny. Originally, I was thinking this meeting was going to be in person. So, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. At this point, just for purposes of the start of the agenda tonight, we have election of officers. So first, I'm just going to go around and verify that everybody has connectivity and can be heard. I'm just going to run the election of officers. Once that takes place, I'll hand the meeting over to whoever that lucky person is to be chair. So going on my screen from left to right, we have Scott Charpentier, DPW Director.
Present.
Mitch Cohen, Chair of the Board of Selectmen and the representative from the board on the committee.
Hello.
Sean Thompson, our Facilities Manager.
Hello.
Dan Brillhart, Fire Captain and representative of the staff.
Present.
Fire Chief David Parente.
Present.
Financial Planning Committee member Representative John Rappa.
Good afternoon.
Citizen at Large Diana Nicholas.
Present.
Former board member and only 49 years of service in various boards and committees, Dawn Rand, citizen
Present.
rep. Becca Meekins, Assistant Town Administrator.
Present.
And Tom Reardon, citizen appointment.
Here.
Very good. All right, thank you, everybody. For purposes, as I said, of just starting the agenda, I'm just going to run election of officers. We're only going to have two officers. There'll be a chair and a vice chair. We don't need a clerk at this point. We'll take care of the minutes. What I'd like to do is open nominations for chair. Does anybody want to make a nomination for chair?
Don, if I nominated you, would you accept?
I will if I don't have to run the video, the Zoom. I'm not good at the Zoom.
We'll handle it. We'll handle the hosting.
Oh, come on, make that a requirement. Come on, Don.
So we
No,
I'll
I'll
nominate
come and
Don
sit
Rand.
with you, Dave.
So we have
I'll
a
second Don
nomination
Rand
for
as chair.
Dawn as chair. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to give the second verbally to Tom Reardon. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Are there any other nominations for chair? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close discussion. All those, well, I have to do this by roll call. We'll go around, we'll go again by the order of why you appear on my screen. Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Dan Brillhart.
Aye.
David Parente.
Aye.
John Rappa.
Aye.
Diana Nicholas.
Aye.
Tom Reardon.
Aye.
And Dawn Rand. I'm assuming you'll say aye since you've accepted.
Aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous. Would you like me to just finish the nomination of officers, Dawn?
Yes,
To go
please.
through the vice chair? Very good. I'll open up nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Mitch Cohen, if he's got the time.
Second.
Sure.
All right, we have a,
As long as Don makes all the meetings, I'm happy to be vice chair.
all right, we have a nomination of Mitch Cohen for vice chair, a nomination in a second. Is there any discussion? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the nomination. I'll go by roll call vote. All those in favor of Mitch for chair, I'll start with Dan Brillhart,
Aye.
David Prente,
Aye.
John Rappa,
Aye.
Diana Nicholas,
Aye.
Dawn Rand,
Aye.
Tom Reardon,
Aye.
and I'll finish with you, Mitch.
Aye.
Are you willing to accept it? Very good. Congratulations. So we have Dawn Rand as chair and Mitch Cohen as vice chair. Very good. I'll turn the gavel, the virtual gavel, over to you, Dawn.
Okay, John, I heard you mention that you actually wanted to do a explanation of how we got here. Did you want us to do that now?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate if the committee would indulge me for a minute. So for viewers at home, and I want to mention we'll get the packet. Becca, is the packet up online for the committee yet? It is. So if somebody would
Yes.
like to follow along with the packet, you can do so at the committee's webpage. In that packet is a brief summary that sort of explains the most recent information in terms of the project status, because it has been a little while since we did complete the feasibility study. So the feasibility study was completed back in 2019. At the April town meeting, 2019, we did have an appropriation that was approved, $3.5 million, and that appropriation covered acquisition of 6165 West Main Street, the designated site, along with 10 Monroe, the secondary designated site. That appropriation is also intended to cover the owner's project manager, which is our representative on the project and required by law that we hire somebody. And then last but not least, for architectural services. So just by way of background, since it has been a bit of time that has elapsed, in terms of the acquisition of 6165 West Main Street, by the way, we did a full public bid process in search of land. And one of the things I think is important to remember, some of not only the returning members of this committee who may have served on a feasibility study, but the new members is, we were very much focused on acquiring one parcel that would allow a central station in the center of town. Now, there isn't very much land available, but we did issue a request for interest on that. It went through a very lengthy process, and ultimately we focused on 6165 West Main Street, which is across from the Dunkin' Donuts, known as the former Pierce gas station. And then behind that was a small single-family home on 10 Monroe, has fronts out on 10 Monroe, but it's directly in the back of that parcel. So it was a somewhat lengthy negotiation for the purchase and sale of 6165 West Main Street. And the reason for that is, as most of you know, it was a former gas station. And so the owner originally did not want any responsibility. They had a report that said it was a clean site, and there was some remediation that was conducted on that site. However, following the town's investigation, we hired our own licensed site professional to review all of the environmental reports. And there were a few things that were of concern to us, not the least of which where there were multiple structures on the site, one of which was a garage. So there was no sampling or testing that was done under the garage. So we structured and negotiated the purchase sale so that the seller would be responsible for not only the removal of all structures, but also remediation of any found contamination. So lo and behold, despite assurances that the site was clean upon the removal of those structures, there was significant contamination that was found. So under the purchase and sale, the seller had to remove all of the contaminated soils. So in the memo, there's a lengthy description of that process. And ultimately, once all that remediation work was completed, our LSP, licensed site professional, recommended strongly that we wait and for 2 additional quarters of groundwater testing. So despite the fact that you saw the buildings get removed and there was an underground storage tank there that nobody was aware of, and there was significant contamination as well. All of that was cleaned up, but the town still was not in a position to take possession because we wanted to make sure that the groundwater was not contaminated. And by the way, all this due diligence is very important. Had there been contamination or significant contamination of the groundwater, it would be a very expensive remediation project. So luckily, 2 quarters have passed by. The groundwater samples have been at levels that aren't reportable. One of the things that we did negotiate, again, in the final revision of the purchase and sale was a reduction in the asking price by about $27,000. And I want to make sure people understand what that was about. We had very, very strict levels of remediation that was required under the purchase and sale. And essentially, if during construction, the town encounters groundwater and that groundwater needs to be pumped out and it has any even a small amount of contamination in it that wouldn't impact our ability to build or be a significant issue, you can't just pump that water out and let it drain into the wetlands. You have to treat it. So in the event that during construction there is any dewatering that's needed, and again, this is a slab on grade, so it would just be for the footings, that would allow that amount of money is what our LSP estimates it might cost if we had to treat anything that came off of that site during the construction. Okay, so does anybody have any questions regarding that? Yes, Tom.
John, did they discover groundwater at a certain elevation below the surface? 36 inches, 48 inches, something like that?
I don't honestly recall off the top of my head, but you know, at some point you're going to encounter groundwater somewhere around, you know, typically 5 or 6 feet in that area. So again, it depends on when you're constructing and whether or not you know, whether or not groundwater levels are high, because obviously they go up depending upon the season. So that was the only thing that our LSP identified as a potential impact to us accepting the parcel at this point. And even if there was some level that needed to be treated, that couldn't just be pumped, you know, into the wetland, it wouldn't impact our ability to develop the site as a fire station. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So obviously that site is the primary site for the new fire station. But as I mentioned at the beginning, behind that, we identified 10 Monroe, a single family home on the back left-hand corner. If you're looking at it from the roadway, we identified 10 Monroe as a parcel that would greatly benefit in terms of the buildability of the site, the flow of the site. And if that single family home remained, it would require us to build a very expensive retaining wall. So it was actually cheaper for the town to acquire that parcel, which was $375,000. A retaining wall would have cost us roughly that amount. It would have compromised the circulation around the back of the building. And probably the most compelling argument was that there would really be no way to mitigate the impacts to that single family home. So by acquiring that, we eliminated the impact, eliminated the need for a significant retaining wall, and the architect basically said that it would greatly enhance the flow and access to and around the site. I'll just say this, that also because that 10 Monroe site has access off of Monroe Street, it helps in aiding potentially access of the upper lands up there for additional, you know, potential parking lots and so forth. So all around, that was a great buy. And 10 Monroe, we have closed on that property. Not only have we closed on it, but Sean Thompson, our facilities manager, working with other staff, had that parcel, that building has been demolished. So as we sit here today with the committee, we have all the land that we envisioned in the center of town, sufficient to build a fire station, one fire station centrally located. All remediation has taken place and the sites are clean. So clean of buildings and structures as well as contamination. So we are in an excellent position, although there's a lot of work to be done clearly to get up to the point at which we would be building and getting approval of the site. I would argue that the hardest thing to do is to obtain adequate space in the downtown to site a central station. So arguably the hardest part is now behind us. So moving forward, yes, John Rappa, through the chair.
How deep does that parcel go? It certainly goes uphill and there's a lot of trees beyond it. What's the footprint? How big is it? Acre or two? John?
No, it's more than that. It's a triangular parcel, but as you indicated, there's significant elevation up there. So there's potential for terracing it, and there's potential for putting a separate parking lot in that upper area that could potentially be accessed from Monroe.
Thank you.
I don't have the Chief, do you have the parcel, or Becca, do you have the I'm
I
just
think
trying to
the
look through
total acreage for 61, 65 and 10 Monroe is like 3.97 acres.
There you go.
Thank you.
So again, has direct access off of Route 20. That was one of the critical criteria that we were looking for. So we now own the parcels. We've closed on them. All remediation, all structures are ready to go. So this group is now the newly configured fire station building committee. So the feasibility study committee is ended. This is a new committee that was formed, appointment by me, approved by the board, by the select board, to now see the design development and hopefully ultimately the construction of a new fire station. So that's the charge of the committee, is to really select the OPM, select the architect, and then oversee the process of the design development from conceptual to ultimately construction documents, and then put the project out to bid. So the next step, and I don't want to jump into the next item on the agenda, but so tonight, the thing that we must do, and what the committee needs to do, is select the owner's project manager. We're required by law to do that, and we're required to do that before we select the architect. Now, just by way of the designer selection, because we're trying to condense the schedule a little bit, we have already issued the RFP, which is in your packet for the OPM. We have 3 proposals from 3 qualified firms that have submitted. So the next step would be to interview those firms, rank them, and ultimately select one. Now, concurrent with that process, on Wednesday of this week, the staff has issued a request for qualifications for the designer, so to hire the architect. That process will go concurrent so that we don't lose any time, so that once we select the OPM, engage them in a contract, we'll be in a position where they then will be able to assist and move right into the selection of the architectural firm. So I'll just, by way of background, in terms of the feasibility study, we structured the feasibility study request for qualifications when we selected the designer to allow the designer who did the feasibility study, which is J. Stewart Roberts. They are eligible, as are any qualified architectural firms, to submit for this project for that RFQ that, again, will go out on Wednesday. So, so at that point, working with the OPM, the committee then would go through a separate selection process, interview and selection process for the architectural firm. Okay.
Thank
So
you, John.
I know I covered a lot of information quickly, but through the chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? John?
The package set has proposals. They're dated May of last year. I know they're still valid, the
Yes.
terms.
Yep. So we were trying to streamline the process at that time, but it was thought to hold off. Originally, staff was going to contemplate selecting the OPM. The decision was made to hold off to allow the committee to do that. But all 3 firms have acknowledged that they're still interested. And as long as by mutual agreement, everybody's willing to abide by those proposals. Remember now, these are qualification-based proposals, so there's no price proposals. So you're just ranking these folks on who you think would be the best OPM for you. And then, subject to negotiations, a contract will be struck between the town and the selected firm. So they've all confirmed that they are available and that they are all 3 firms are interested in moving forward.
Follow-on question.
Yes, John.
So staffing they would have proposed, we'd corroborate that staff is still in place and available for the project, yes?
Yeah, so that's one of the things when they come in, it's possible that a couple of members of the team might have switched out based on being assigned to other projects. So one of the things that we would seek from them and when we bring them in for the interview is ask them to give us a current proposed staff org chart for who will be working on our particular project.
Thank you.
Diana,
John had the same question that I did. I'm just wondering, in addition to that staff, can we ask for their capacity, what the workload of the individuals looks like at this time?
Sure. Yeah. When they come in as part of the interview, you're going to want to have them talk about the specific staff that they're selecting, proposing for our project. And then part of that discussion is what other projects are they working on? How does this fit into their work schedule? That's why I say, given a little bit of a time delay here, they may have switched out a project manager or somebody assigned to the project. So we want to know who are they proposing, and then just validate that they have the capacity to take on our project. Okay.
So that would bring us to the review of the OPM submissions. I reviewed them, and obviously I don't do this for a living like a couple of you, so I was impressed with all of them, but we should talk about if anybody has any reservations about any.
How about observations,
Diane,
Dawn?
observation? That was John?
Each of them have done projects near Northborough, and one has done the Lincoln Street School. So they've got considerable portfolios in terms of similar experience, larger and smaller projects than this all over the state. So they're obviously qualified. Collier's is probably the larger of the three, owned by a public company, but clearly they have the qualifications that, to be their right church and pew.
Going through the chair, if I may, you certainly can get into a discussion. You only have three. You have three proposals. My suggestion, the staff suggestion, is that they're all based on the minimum criteria. We believe they're all qualified. So the suggestion from staff would be to bring all three in and interview them. And then that gives us a chance to, as to John and Diana's point, make sure that the staff they're proposing is either the same or we're still comfortable. Make sure that their proposals, if they need to be updated at all, we have the most current information. But go through the interview process with them, and then the committee would convene. And I believe Becca sent out a matrix, or will send out a matrix of ranking. In which case, the committee as a whole can work so that you have the benefit, as Dawn mentioned, of hearing everybody's input. Rank them, from first to last, with the highest ranked being selected for contract, recommended for contract negotiations. So I don't know that you can certainly get into a little bit, but I think it probably makes more sense for us to have them in, conduct the interviews, ask questions of them, and then deliberate on those, unless the committee feels like there's one of the proposals that the committee by consensus has no interest in, or you feel one of them isn't qualified. But I think you've got three good firms to look at. The recommendation of staff would be to choose a date, sometime probably the first week in April, to conduct interviews. Again, you only have three of them. The suggestion would be to do all three in one sitting, half an hour, presentation, 15 minutes or so of questions, wrap up and move through the three of them. And then afterwards, or at a separate meeting, if you're too tired at that point, depending on how long it goes, have a discussion to rank them. In the meantime, staff can conduct, some some reference checks to make sure that, we have that to bring into the discussion in terms of the qualifications of the firm. And then that would basically be the process. So the next point would be a recommendation. The staff would be, unless people feel otherwise and you want to get into a little bit more discussion tonight, schedule those interviews, have them come in, make sure you have current information, current project teams, and then following that, I think makes sense to have with the selection matrix you have to follow the criteria that the town put in the RFQ of, highly advantageous, and rank them. So people should do that individually, and then we will do it collectively as a group, and generally through consensus determine who the top ranked firm is. Does that make sense as a process?
Diana,
So I won't get into the details of the review, but all of them were fairly boilerplate in terms of their approach. And I don't know if you're sending out specific questions beyond the criteria, which are publicly available. But I do think that it would be helpful to hear a more detailed approach that actually relates to our town, our project. I think that's an important piece of selection.
Okay.
Madam Chair, is it appropriate for us to say contact people we know that have worked with these companies? Or should we leave this to the staff to do the reference checking? For
John,
example, Bob Frederico, who is the building commissioner in Northborough, was on the building committee for the Grafton Fire Department that was overseen by Colliers. So is it appropriate for us to talk to Bob, or should we stay out of it?
Well, Bob's an easy one because he's our staff, so we'll chat with him. But
Okay,
if you are aware of people, want to be careful here. We want the references to be done professionally, not that you wouldn't be professional, but done, consistently. And why don't we say this? If you are aware of if any board members are aware of a project that isn't included in the submission, or specifically that you would like us to do a reference check on, we'd be happy to do that. So like what you just identified, Tom, that's an easy one. We'll have a conversation with Bob, since he's right down the hall from us, and see what his thoughts are on that project.
yeah, like I know the town manager in Shrewsbury, and PMA did their library. So that's
Well,
an easy one for
Becca
me.
used to work for the town, or with the
Yeah.
town manager in Shrewsbury as well. So
So,
yeah. So we'll go around. I mean, we'll try. We have, if there's a town manager somewhere in the state, who's worked with any of these folks, we'll know
Yep.
them.
Fine.
Some of them, like I said, at least one of the firms we have, personal experience with. But we'll spend some time getting those references down. If there's any specific project or individual that you know of, I would ask that, you let us know. And it's generally better if one person is doing, consistently doing the reference checks. So there's sort of one standard.
thank you.
Madam
Diana.
Chair, I do believe that we're actually supposed to review these on the merits of what they've actually submitted to us. So we should not be looking for references beyond those that are listed in the documents that they've provided. So between the document they've provided and the interview and the specific reference checks, I don't think that we are allowed to or supposed to go further afield searching for information on the projects.
Thank you, Diana. And I would agree that I think it should be left to a systematic check at the end, done by town staff. At that point in time, I guess it would be Becca or John, you won't be there. So somebody from the town hall would follow through with the different references. But certainly, I think if you know somebody that in your sphere, it wouldn't hurt if you just asked how the project went, maybe. John?
And they're required to provide us with the most recent projects that they've done or that are relevant to ours. Those are the ones that are key for us. So
Okay.
we'll start with the most recent.
So anything else that about the review, or we should go forward with the interviews first? Ready to go forward? So the next thing would be the discussion of the dates, right? Oh, next steps with architects first.
Well,
Discussion of next steps in the OPM selection process.
Yeah,
So
so
that
the
would be setting
recommendation
the
would be
dates.
to look at some dates for,
Right.
first week in April.
Okay. Does anybody have issues? John?
Just
No,
the
I'm wide
notation
open as
that
far
week
as
you got Passover and Holy Week, the week of April 3rd. That might be in a conflict for some people.
Yeah, it prevents me from attending meetings Wednesday or Thursday evenings.
Okay,
I'm
So-
available Monday and Tuesday.
how about Monday? Is everybody available on Monday?
What,
Anybody
April
that's not
10th or
available?
3rd? Are you talking about April 10th?
No, we're talking the 3rd, right? Mitch should be available on
Yes.
the 3rd.
Yep.
So we're talking, let's talk the 3rd and the 4th, the availability of people. John, would you suggest we schedule them all in one day?
I think you can get through the interviews in one day. The question's going to be, do you, after doing 3 hours of interviews, do you want to have some time to think about it and then schedule another meeting to rank them? That might, make sense unless the committee feels very energetic and wants to plow through. You could do it either way. But I do suggest that you, if you can, sit down and do all 3 back to back, and just get it done. But again, there's no right or wrong or legally required. You could split them up, but no matter how you split, it's going to be 2 one night, 1 the next night, and then a discussion. That's a possibility too. You could split them up between the 3rd and the 4th. Do 2 one night, 1 the next night, and the second night we have 1 do the discussion and the ranking. That's a possibility.
Yeah, what would you say for
People
a
are
time
available the
frame,
3rd and the
John?
4th.
I'm
An
not
hour
available
for
the
each?
4th.
You're not
Yeah,
available,
but-
Diana?
Yeah,
Not on
I'm
the
out of
4th.
town the 4th through the 10th.
So would it be okay if we scheduled them all on the 3rd and tried to push through and did a ranking afterwards? How do you all
We
feel
could do
about that?
30-minute interviews with 15 minutes between.
You think 30 minutes is enough?
Well, yeah, I think
Depends on
30
what we wanna
minutes, and then
hear.
you're going to want to ask, have some time to ask some questions.
So would
we
you suggest an
can-
hour?
We were thinking
suggest
45 minutes. We'll schedule them an hour each,
Okay,
but try to, you want to leave time for your questions and again, if we can, this is up to the committee. We've done it all different ways, is, we can send them specific questions that we would like them to cover. We don't want them to come in and read from their proposal, right? We can read.
correct.
You want them to provide information, to Diana's point, specific to our project. And we've got some, we can provide some questions to the committee that we've done when we've interviewed other architectural firms when they've come in.
And John, would this be the same as when different things that we've done? That they all get asked the same questions? You can go with follow-ups from that, but you make sure that each firm is asked the same question?
Yeah, generally you want to try to ask similar questions, and if they're not, if you don't feel like you have an answer, you can ask follow-up questions.
Okay, all right, so we're talking about the 2nd. What time would be everybody be available to start? Oh,
Madam Chair, I
Dave?
think it was the 3rd, and my question is, were you planning on doing it in person or one of these?
You're right, it was the 3rd. I would like to do it in person, but
I can't disagree with you. I think you get a much better feel.
I do too. How does everyone else feel?
Agree.
I think that's fine. I agree. You do get a better feel for person. I would suggest that any in-person meetings we have, we make sure that Northborough Cable records them. As we're moving through this process, I think it'll be good for the public to see the work that we're doing, and that will improve our chances of a successful outcome when it comes to town meeting.
You could arrange that, John.
Yes, we'll let Cable Access know when we settle on a date and time. So,
Okay. So what time is the availability begin for everyone? I'm available all day,
5
all
o'clock.
day, all night.
All day.
Diana,
I'm available after 3.
after 3? Would that be starting at 3 or after 3?
I could start at 3.
Could everyone start at
Daughter's
3?
playing at Jordan Hall that night, so I can't be after 4.
Okay,
Okay, I can probably go as early as
I can't
12 or
do
1.
I can't do any earlier than 3:15.
Oh, boy.
Unfortunately.
okay, so let's talk Tuesday, but somebody can't do Tuesday, right?
Yeah, I'm on the road.
Neither Tom nor I.
Okay. So do we look at the next week?
I'm out of town starting the 11th. I think Tom gets back the 10th.
That's
How
right.
about the Friday before, John? You know, town hall isn't open, but
You're talking about the 31st?
yeah,
Yeah, you just want to give, but we've contacted all of them, so they're anticipating that we're going to be looking to do the interviews, but you want to give people a little bit of little time. I mean, today is the 20th, right? So that's a little short of 2 weeks, but we could potentially make that work.
I'm open all day on the 31st.
That sound like something you want to look at? I just would be,
is everyone okay?
generally speaking, we don't schedule late meetings on a Friday, but a daytime meeting if everybody can work.
Yeah,
like that.
I can make it work in the afternoon or evening. on
Yeah,
Friday.
I would prefer the day myself. So if everybody can make daytime, what time could you start?
9 a.m.
Okay.
8
Anybody
o'clock.
else?
8 o'clock if it had to be.
I can do that.
Yeah, I can't do in the morning. I got a regular day job, but I could do in the afternoon.
You could start at what time, Mitch?
1:30.
All right, John, can we make it work for 1?
Yeah, again, I won't be here, but I think
right.
Becca and
Becca?
staff
Becca and
is
John?
gonna, we do close at noon, but understanding we're trying to get these things scheduled, so.
So starting at 1, and we would have discussion later that day. So tentatively 1.
Did you say you
2,
can do
3.
1 or 1:30? Can you do 1?
I can do 1.
Okay, so 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4?
Yeah, and discussion that day. Or would you do discussion on Monday? What time, Tom, could you make Monday at all?
Yes, I leave Tuesday.
Madam Chair, why don't we just wait and see how it goes that day? If we're ready to do it that night, we can just do the discussion that night.
We
Right?
wouldn't be able to schedule a Monday
We'll have to
meeting.
post it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You post it and well, I guess you could do that. Yeah, up to you guys.
We could post it, put the discussion as an agenda item for Friday, pre-post on Monday in case, and then decide then.
So what, Dawn, you're muted. So what time on Monday then? Because we just post the meeting and cancel it if it's not needed. So what time, so Monday the 3rd?
Wasn't there a window of like 3 to 4 between Mitch and Tom?
So
Okay,
3,
so does Monday the 3rd at 3 p.m. work
Could
for
we do
everybody?
could we do 3:15? I'm sorry. I need to get my daughter from the
It's oddly
dentist.
specific.
I need to get my daughter from the dentist at 3.
Do you want to say
We could do that
3:30?
one virtual too, if that's helpful for anyone.
Okay, so I don't remember if there was somebody who couldn't make what the stop was. So as long as you're leaving enough time to have a discussion, there probably would take upwards of an hour. I think you'd want to leave.
I think Tom had to leave early that night.
What
Yeah, I
time,
gotta go to
Tom?
Boston around 4:45, 4:30.
Okay,
That'll work.
so why don't we say plan on 3:30 to 4:30? Does that make sense? It gives Mitch a little bit of time to get back and gives Tom a little time to get out.
Great.
So
Sounds
that
good.
would Monday, the 3rd at 3:30. If needed for discussion and review and vote on the selected OPM, if it isn't done on that prior Friday. You could finish the interviews and be like, hands down, it's not even questionable, this is the firm that we want to go with. Or you may
Mhm.
want to have a more lengthy discussion.
so the hours on that Friday will be 3?
So on the Friday is, we start at 1, so 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. We'll schedule them. Hopefully they'll be able to get in here on that day.
Okay. And if we have discussion afterwards, we can have discussion as long as we post discussion, right?
Yes, we'll post it on the agenda, and then you can decide if you want to pass over it and take it up on Monday or not.
Okay, works for me. Is everybody okay? Yes. John, you okay?
I just concurred, Dawn. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. All right, so that's a future meeting date. Do we need another future meeting date after that? Or
You can discuss now or at your next meeting, what you want to schedule as a regular meeting time. The way this works is you're going to spend a lot more time in the beginning because you're interviewing, you're selecting, so there's information coming and there's work to be done. And then there'll be periods of time once the architect is on board where they may go, several weeks until they need to sit down and have something to share with you. So in the beginning, you're probably going to want to meet, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. But I guess the thing to discuss is there a preferred day that works for everybody? I think would be what we'd want to know.
is there a
We're
better
open
day?
late on Tuesdays. Remember, we're open until 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. It's my plug for staff, so they don't have another night meeting. Or to meet during the day works very well for us as well. So if we could come up with a daytime meeting, that would be great.
Let's start with days. Has anybody got a day that they're always available? Or anybody that doesn't have a day that they're not available?
Like mid to late afternoon would be best during a weekday, just when you're having professionals attend these meetings, that's during their normal workday. If there's a 4 o'clock, 4:30, they can, the architects can be present without having a night meeting.
Okay, Mondays work, but Mondays or Fridays work best for me, but I know the staff isn't around on Fridays.
Yeah,
Anyone
I can
else?
frequently do late afternoons on Mondays. But there might even be some that I wouldn't be able to do. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of work meetings during normal business hours.
And how are Mondays for everyone else? Diana?
That's fine. 4 or 5, or 3, anywhere in there.
Again, we don't have to decide this today. I think we've got, 2 meetings to come up, maybe between now and then, if people give it some thought about what day works. I'll just plug. Does Tuesday a good day or a bad day? Does Tuesday not work for anybody, I guess is the question. The reason why I'm plugging that is because staff is here from morning till 7 p.m. So
I can't do that before or after. Well, I can do after 5:30 or before 3:30.
okay.
Just got a little hole there.
Most Tuesday late afternoons to evenings work for me.
Does 5:30 on Tuesdays work for people, just in general?
Yes.
Look at that. The
Okay.
holy grail of meeting times.
All right.
All right,
well,
so we don't need to schedule anything, I don't think, right now, but if people would hold, the Tuesdays at 5:30, I think that's what we'll focus on for future meetings, if that makes sense.
John, when did you foresee that we would need the next meeting?
Let's
4
let's get through the
weeks?
OPM selection and then we can start to work out the work schedule from there. We may not have much to do behind the scenes. We'll have to negotiate a contract with the OPM, and then we're going to be waiting for the architects to submit. So the next bit of work would be scheduling, distributing, scheduling the architects. So it might be a little bit before we have to meet. We kind of need to see where we're at.
So that would be the discussion of the next steps with architects, right?
Yeah. Next step with architects is just informing you what I did, which is that we are going out. The RFP is going to hit the street on Wednesday. And so those are going to be coming in and we'll meet just like we are to review them, interview, and then select them. The
Okay.
architect. We have to have the OPM by law, has to be on board before you go through that process. Does that make sense?
Yep. Any questions? Any other business that might come before the
Question,
committee?
Dawn?
Yeah,
Question,
John?
Dawn?
Yep.
In the packet that John sent out, there's a document in there from PM&C from March of 2019. Seems like an orphan relative to the 3 OPMs. Can you tell me where that came from?
Becca, I'm not sure. I didn't put the packet together.
That's the cost estimate from the concept study.
Oh, yeah, that was because,
That's from the
Oh, it-
feasibility stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that,
Thank you.
that was information, oh, that was from, that information would have come from, J. Stewart Roberts, the architect.
yeah, because it was directed to them on the cover letter. Okay. I wasn't sure the focus of that. Thank you.
John, it was an attachment to the RFP that we put out.
Okay,
So,
thank you,
yeah.
Becca.
Thank you, Becca.
all right. Any other questions? Okay, any other business that may legally come before the board?
I don't have
Motion
anything
to
else. this
adjourn.
evening.
Move to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second? Motion to be adjourned in a second. All those in favor, I'll call the way I see people. Dan Brillhat,
Yes.
Mitch,
Aye.
Dave Parenti,
Yes.
John Rappa,
Aye.
Diana Nicholas,
Aye.
Tom Reardon,
Yes.
and Don Rand.